Hello and welcome to the Total Soccer Show. My name is Daryl Grove and I'm joined by a man with whom I have watched so far 62 World Cup matches. His name is Taylor Rockwell. Hello.
Hello. One more to go? Not two more to go.
So, you're not watching the third place playoff with me?
I mean, no. I'm going to maybe watch it or at least have it on in the background, but no, I'm not planning to give it too much attention.
So that's going to be you're not a completist then? You don't want to watch that one extra game just to get the full set?
Nope.
I guess not. All right. But I'll see you here Sunday.
I'm pretty sure that one won't be too integral to the plot of the final.
I'll see you here Sunday for the final. 11 a.m. Eastern kickoff, Croatia versus France. Not the final we were expecting.
No,
when this
not
whole
at all.
thing started.
No, in fact, even when the semifinals came around, I remember hilariously joking, wouldn't it be funny if the third place game were Belgium-England and it was another meaningless game?
Yeah.
And here we are.
All right.
But even before that, no, I certainly would not have picked Croatia to make the final. I didn't pick France to make it either. I know
a lot of people did, though, right?
I think
a lot of people
the FIFA
said,
simulator said it would be France in the final.
They said France, not Croatia, though, right?
France-Germany, I think, is what they had.
That feels right. Let's talk about Croatia then.
Sure.
That's the surprise, right? That Croatia are in the World Cup final. If we've watched them play, which we have, it's not a surprise. But just, I would argue if they win, it's the first ever surprise winner of a World Cup.
Yeah. I mean,
which is mind-blowing.
I would even extend what you've just said further to, we've watched them play, and it's not a surprise that they're here, and yet it's still a surprise that they're here. It's that level for me, yeah.
But here's how I'm feeling. It's mostly a surprise just because it usually feels like by the time you get to a World Cup final, even when teams that you didn't expect to impress have impressed, there's always seems to be a point where the big boys take over, right? I'd even go as far back as 1998, the last time that Croatia made the semi-finals. We got to a point where it ended up being Brazil-France in the final, right? And then 2002, Korea and Turkey go to the semi-finals. But at some point, the big teams, Germany and Brazil, say, all right, that's far enough. That's far enough. This time, Croatia have made it all the way to the very edge of the podium.
Yeah, and I know that this makes me probably sound like the talking heads that we saw on Fox Sports 1 earlier when we turned on the TV to hear them discussing LeBron James, shock of all shocks. But I'm almost inclined to say that Croatia winning the World Cup would be a bigger surprise to me than when Leicester won the Premier League.
That's interesting.
Not gambling-wise, because I know they were like the biggest long shot ever, but just more so because at least in the English league, we had going back past 1992, there had been unheralded teams who had made runs, who had Blackburn winning the Premier League, that's happened. Whereas it's really been the kind of standard countries that we come to expect, certainly in the modern era. And so, yeah, it really is I could have thought, maybe an unheralded team will win the Premier League. I still kind of don't believe that we're in a situation when there's a really good chance that a quote-unquote underdog, dark horse, what have you, could potentially win the World Cup.
Here's why it's weird. Look at the European Championships, which is, a somewhat similar event. Greece won it.
Yep.
Denmark won it in 1992. You get surprise winners.
Yeah,
so
Portugal was a surprise winner, I would say.
Yeah, to some extent, yeah. So this could be the day that World Cup history changes. Could be Sunday, because suddenly teams at the level of Croatia going forward could go to World Cup and not just say things like, oh yeah, if we get to semi-finals, that'd be great, and then we'll see what happens.
Yep.
But teams will say, hey, Croatia won it. Maybe it's our turn to win it. Yeah.
And really, I mean, I think Germany, when they won it previously, not in 2014, but before that, they won as West Germany. So technically, we could say that if Croatia won it, we would have had 3 first-time winners in a row. There we go. Perfect.
Lovely, Taylor.
Yeah,
lovely.
I got to say.
Shall we get into the specifics of this game then?
Sure.
Because we have seen these teams play multiple times, literally 6 times each.
Yes.
And maybe 12 times because we've rewatched most games. So I think we've done our prep for this World Cup final.
We watched the 10 minutes just now of Croatia-England, and then we neither one of us could handle any more of it, so then off it went.
I was welling up a little bit. So we watched Croatia-Russia instead, right?
Yes. It had the feeling of, well, we did do that, didn't we? I forgot we switched to that. It had the feeling of, have you ever watched a movie and just been in the opening, the opening incident that leads to everything else? Have you ever been no, just don't go down that hallway. That's all you have to do. Maybe he won't go down that hallway this time. We watched the Trippier goal, and then we're just don't do that.
Don't answer the phone, girl in Scream.
Yeah, exactly.
Drew Barrymore. Was it Drew Barrymore?
It was.
I believe it was, yeah.
One of several women to answer phones in those films, yes.
Don't put that popcorn on the stove.
There we go.
Okay, so we've watched Croatia and France multiple times each.
I'm going to make sure we say don't put that popcorn on the stove at another point in this episode. I just want that on the record now.
Let's start with France. I'm pretty confident I know what France will look like, who they're going to select, but let's do it together.
Okay.
All right. I'm going to call it 4-2-3-1 when they do the graphic pre-match, but actually a 4-3-3, especially when they're in a defensive shape. It's a pretty straightforward 4-3-3.
Yep, I would agree with all that, which
all
means
right.
we've got, and we're thinking it's probably just going to be the usual starters.
Yep.
Maybe there's a question mark around one position.
Les usual suspects.
Yeah, oh, well done. So Lloris in goal,
Yep.
Pavard at right back, Hernandez left back, your customary center backs of Umtiti and Varane.
Yep, the Classico Juniors.
I forgot we called them that. That was good work by you on that one.
Thank you.
Then we've got N'Golo Kante, Paul Pogba as your kind of two double pivot holding midfielders, whatever you want to call those gentlemen.
Sometimes joined by Blaise Matuidi,
There we go.
who is both weirdly a left mid, but also a centre mid. Yeah, joining Kante and Pogba.
He'll be lifted as a left midfielder on the graphic, and then you'll find yourself wondering, why is that left midfielder playing centre midfield?
Poor wing play from the left mid. There's a chance it's Tolisso instead. If for some reason Matuidi's not fit to go, I would bet good money on it being Matuidi.
As would I. He seems like he has proven himself to Didier Deschamps.
Yep, and then ahead of them it's going to be Giroud will be the main centre forward. Griezmann's like sort of to his left, but also then underneath him.
Yep.
I think connecting play a bit more, and then Kylian Mbappe on the right.
I would agree with all of those statements.
So that's what France will look like. We'll get into more detail about what we expect France to do, but let's flip it to the other side and talk about Croatia's starting 11. We learned in the build-up to the England game, they are uninjurable.
It doesn't
matter. It doesn't matter if Vaselko's all his knee joints popped out and fell on the floor. He will find a way to play.
It's passion, Daryl. It's heart.
It's passion.
It's determination.
It's worth noting.
It's none of those things.
Just in case we forget to say this, Croatia have played extra time in the round of 16, the quarter-final and the semi-final, and they've emerged victorious every time. I've learned my lesson. I am not even going to think about saying maybe they'll be tired.
Nope.
Because they will not.
They will not.
There's so much adrenaline available for a World Cup final.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I also think it's worth noting that it's likely they're going to play the exact same 11 as they played against England.
Yes.
They do still have some of those same injury concerns. So both fullbacks, Strinic and Vrsaljko, as you said, have had injury concerns at different points in this tournament, but we expect both of them to start.
Yep.
Modric and Rakitic as their two maybe like more attack-minded central midfielders. Again, both of them covering. I think Modric has covered more ground than any other player in the tournament. So take that, Golovin.
Without the ball.
Yeah, true.
His passes have probably covered more ground than any other player or ball.
I would say that's fair.
But let's start with their shape.
Sure.
So we expect, again, I would call it a 4-1-4-1 might be the best way to put it on screen, but it's also kind of a 4-3-3. But it's also, maybe we'll talk about this in detail when we get deeper in the show, it's a very flexible shape that can do multiple things.
Yeah.
Yeah?
I think, sorry to make it even more semantics, but I would say 4-1-4-1, I agree with you, and then I think it's almost easier to say like 4-3-2-1, and you just imagine those wide players in the midfield four dropping in.
All right, but let's kind of name it. Subasic will be the goalkeeper. Fullbacks will be, unless the knee got really bad, Vrsaljko as the right back, he'll get up and down quite a bit, Strinic as the left back. Your centre-backs will be Lovren, one of the best defenders in the world, he said recently, and you got to say he's probably right. He was in a Champions League final, he's in a World Cup final. If you want to call yourself one of the best defenders in the world, you absolutely can, Dejan Lovren.
He's a good defender.
He's one of the best defenders in the world. He didn't say he was the best.
All
he didn't say he was in the top one. He'll be partnered by Vida, who you all know with the shaved hair.
And the adorable child.
Oh, yes.
Yep.
Midfield three.
Uh-huh.
Modric, Rakitic, who you mentioned, but behind them will be, I'm really confident.
I was going to say we think, but you have nailed down will be.
Brozovic, number 11, defensive midfielder. Plays for Inter, I believe. Brozovic. It will not be Kramaric ahead of Modric and Rakitic. It has to be Brozovic. If it's not, Dalic has got this wrong and Croatia are losing the World Cup final.
Wow. It's a bold statement.
It's an accurate statement?
Yeah. Because I think you got to worry about the talent that France have coming through the middle. I think Brozovic goes a long way towards solving some of those issues.
He's a screener. He's the Croatian Kante. He's the Croatian N'Golo Kante.
Slightly larger, but yes.
Kante-ish.
Yes. Less fun. Brozovic, N'Golo Kante. I don't know which one's more fun to say. And then on either side of those midfielders, you've got Perisic. Ivan Perisic will be your left winger / left wing back / left back occasionally. And on the right, Ante Rebic. Up top, Mario Mandzukic.
The Mario Mandzukic, to give him his full name. All right, so there's your two shapes. What should we do next? Should we think about what they're going to do with those shapes?
We can. I think it's more so for me. When you get to this point, like we have a lot of familiarity with both teams, and it can almost be like a poison chalice because then it becomes like, oh, we've seen him do this, but he's done this too, and he's done this. So I feel like going down that road can be nebulous and confusing. So instead, I'm going to go broad strokes and say, I think this game could very easily be wildly captivating. I think it could also be very dull. And it will very much depend on how these teams approach and how they respond to the other's approach.
All right, give me the dull version first.
Sure. I think the dull version is Croatia come out aggressive and press and maybe get bypassed once or twice and very quickly think, okay, this isn't going to work. Pressing leaves us too open. Let's drop back and
so
be
they'll
defensive.
shout, retreat.
Yeah, and basically drop back to that 4-3-2-1, sit
or
defensive.
what essentially will become a 4-5-1
Yeah,
at
basically.
that point. Yeah.
And then just sit and look to break whenever the opportunity presents itself, but stay compact. And I think the problem there, as we've seen many times with France, they're not particularly adept at breaking down a compact bunkered defense.
Here's the key thing. France are brilliant. If you come at them and they break you and they counter, they have all the weapons to counter. Paul Pogba is so good at removing the ball from you and then starting a really fast break. Like maybe he dribbles past one, then plays a perfect pass, then he can spring Mbappe in behind, or Giroud will lay it off, or Griezmann will come and connect a pass. They are super dangerous when they do that. But if you sit deep and invite them to bring the ball forward slowly, they will start moving the ball around slowly, and they'll be knocking on every door and it won't open, and it's really frustrating to watch because then you're watching all this French talent not do anything interesting with the ball and struggle to break down a defense.
Yeah.
That's the bad version of this game.
Agreed. And to stick with Paul Pogba for a second, I would say look at the Australia game way back when
that was this World Cup?
Remember when that happened?
Wasn't that the 2010 World Cup?
I think it was. Do you remember his involvement in both the goals there?
Yes.
Those, I think, are very telling.
Oh,
yes.
Yes.
Because to me, for the first goal, the one that ended up being the penalty, the controversial penalty.
Yeah, the Josh Risden one.
Yep. That's Pogba, getting the ball, driving forward, playing a direct ball into the feet of Griezmann, who's taken down, right? But that's Pogba springing an attack from deep versus the second goal was France just desperately trying to get a winner because Australia were more than happy to play for a draw.
Yeah.
Then you had Paul Pogba up around the top of the 18 trying to make things happen. Yes, it eventually works in the form of an own goal, but I think if you see
Did
Paul
he not
Pogba,
get credit for that?
No, he did not.
Oh, no.
I think if you routinely see Paul Pogba in and around the opposition 18, in my opinion, that means that it's Croatia bunkering and France just kind of throwing players forward. Because more often than not, when they've done that quick break counterattack, it's been Paul Pogba who actually kind of sits in on the right-hand side of midfield to cover for Pavard, the right back who gets forward.
Isn't that one of the keys to France's World Cup?
I think so.
Is that Paul Pogba has been super disciplined.
Yep.
He's been very happy to stay back. Yeah, like you said, centre right, almost hold there alongside N'Golo Kanté, supplement what Kanté's doing, knowing that his best chance of mounting an attack is to, tackle someone and go into some open space rather than just be lost in the crowd.
I would agree, and I think maybe this is me buying too hard into the sound bites, but I think the most important thing for all of these players, for France and Croatia, but we're talking about France right now, is winning the World Cup. And so it doesn't really matter what...
You heard it here first.
Well, more so, I know that's an obvious thing, but what I mean by that is that I think they don't care how it happens.
Yeah.
So for Paul Pogba, I think he would love to score the game-winning goal. I think that would be very good for him. But I think he would be equally happy to be 40 yards behind the play as Kylian Mbappe scores the winner. And I think, go with Antoine Griezmann, there was a lot of controversy about from Thibaut Courtois saying that I wish we'd lost to Brazil because they at least play, France don't play soccer or football, obviously.
Really?
Yeah, he was very critical, as were a lot of the Belgian players. I think Griezmann responded I'm sure Thibaut Courtois can go back and play that Barcelona-style soccer with Chelsea, but for us, I don't care how we win, I want the second star. And I think that really is the mentality for a lot of these players for France.
Because they also have, losing Euro 2016 just 2 years ago, a lot of the same team, right? Dimitri Payet's not there, and I'm sure there's been some turnover, but in my head, this is mostly...
They have actual centre-backs this time. They did not last time.
They have mostly the same team, right?
Yep.
Ooh, okay. Interesting. Before we move on, we should talk about today's sponsor, not least because today's sponsor has some great World Cup content for you.
Who could we possibly be talking about, Daryl?
Today's show is sponsored by The Athletic. The Athletic is a subscription website with all-star writers writing great soccer content.
That's right. One of those writers would be Joseph Lowry, writing a good detailed preview of the game that we are talking about right now.
Yep.
So
you know him as Joe Incleats on Twitter. At The Athletic, he's allowed to write things that are longer than 280 characters.
I'm sure he appreciates that. So if you either can't get enough World Cup previewing, that would be a good one to read. Or if you don't have time to listen to what I'm assuming will end up being an hour-long podcast, then that's a good abbreviated way to go if you want to get prepped for this game.
Yep. Oh, we should say we do a lot of, as well as watching, we do a lot of reading when we do our research to do our shows, right? Mm-hmm. One of the things we read before this preview was Joseph Flower's, I can't remember the title of it, but it's essentially Croatia-France World Cup final preview. Lots of good tactical insights in there. I won't give them away, because, you've got to subscribe to get all the good stuff.
That makes sense. Less tactical insight, but still a very interesting read, was Paul Tenorio's day spent with Michael Bradley as England played Tunisia, Panama played Belgium, we think. Yeah. So really interesting emotional insight into Michael Bradley watching games he might have been involved in, but instead was at Toronto headquarters. Yep.
But also just an interesting meditation on the role of Michael Bradley in American soccer society.
Wow.
Is what I'm going to call it. He really gets deep into...
I think that was Paul's first pitch for a title, and George and Brooks said, let's tighten that up a little bit.
Let's narrow it down a little bit. Even if you read the comments on this story, it's really interesting. You see both sides of the Michael Bradley opinion divide.
Yes.
Is that a good way of saying it?
I would say I think Jason Davis was slightly tongue-in-cheek poking fun at commenters on the Athletic website. But I think even so, with that said, it was still more informed and less just oh, he sucks comments than I think I've ever seen about Michael Bradley.
So it's interesting to see that divide, but done mostly politely and intelligently, as opposed to, oh, he sucks. Yeah.
When you see people actually
added
responding...
the vocal fry.
I'm with you. But when you see people actually responding to the points or questions raised by the commenter before them and not just writing in all caps about how bad somebody is, it's a nice change of pace.
It's because people have subscribed to The Athletic and invested in, wanting to read this content and be engaged in what's going on there.
Yep.
I can't help notice you haven't mentioned my recent story as the content you would recommend on The Athletic.
You wrote a story?
You haven't read it, have you?
I sure haven't.
I wrote an underused subs 11. So the 11 players in a 4-4-2 that basically I think haven't had enough time given to them at the World Cup.
Give us one.
I'm trying to think. Paulo Dybala.
Okay.
Dybala, I think, is an excellent example of someone who absolutely should have been playing for Argentina. Not just because he's a wonderfully talented player, but also because the reason he's not playing is because of that Messi fixation that I think was a terrible idea in terms of what Argentina were doing. So Dybala is, to me, the classic underused sub at the 2018 World Cup.
All right, so you can read that story.
I just gave away 1/11 of my story.
I know.
You tricked me.
I'm okay with it. So you can read that story or many, many others at The Athletic. And if you'd like to use the TSS promo code, you can even do so at a discount.
You can, a 40% discount off your subscription at theathletic.com/TSS World Cup. Theathletic.com/TSS World Cup. I'm also working on an England story, so that should be up there soonish. Thank you to The Athletic for sponsoring today's show. I'll let you know when it publishes so you can't read it, Tyler.
That works.
All right. We were just talking about Pogba before the ad break. I would like to talk about what I would call Croatia's key man.
Sure.
His name is Luka Modric. I know it's an obvious take to call him the key man. People are talking about him as the best midfielder in the world because he's having such a great tournament. For me, Luka Modric is so good at moving the ball from one side of the field to the other. We talked about this in the England-Croatia review. He was key to Croatia being able to go from one left wing to right wing really, really quickly and smoothly, so fast you didn't even know that it had happened. He runs the show by doing this for Croatia. That could be the undoing of France.
Why do you say that?
Because I remember France versus Belgium, they sat in that 4-3-3 and they stayed rather narrow, right? And they sort of said, OK, Belgium, we'll let you have the wings, but you're not coming through the middle. Not least because, as Joseph Flowery points out in his Athletic article, N'Golo Kante is in the middle. So if you try and come through the middle, there's trouble, right? There's a lot of players who will relieve you of the ball. But if you're able to swing the ball from one wing to the other, you can start stretching the opposition by making them shuffle from one side of the field to the other. This is what they did to England. Eventually, either you don't have enough players on one side when Modric moves the ball over there, or you get spread out and gaps start to appear and you can mine those seams. And when you start mining it, you get goals.
All right. I'm glad you worked that analogy out that well. I would say this, though, that I think that what we saw from Croatia against England is that if they don't find their way through, then they just start crossing the ball. But I think that can be equally effective, obviously, since that's how they got both of their goals.
Yeah.
So I think then the key for France becomes how do you deal with maybe putting a little bit of pressure on, but being able to defend those crosses in a more effective way than England were.
So the crosses are interesting, right? Because they can come from Rebic on the right or Perisic on the left, but they can also come...
I'd say more likely to come from
Vrsaljko, the fullback, or Strinic, the other fullback. Or if he's wandered out there, there's a cross from Modric or Rakitic is just as dangerous,
Are you getting paid by Luka Modric?
I mean, I wish I was. I'm not his lawyer. His lawyer's the only one getting paid by Luka Modric right now, who's going to be busy after the World Cup. In the box is Mario Mandzukic, right? So really smart striker, really able to sort of move off of defenders as he did to England. Here's my contention. The very casual soccer fan will not know about Mario Mandzukic. Maybe Fox won't put him up in the graphic like they did to
They'll know him
Neymar.
as like the tall, spiky hair tattoo.
The tall, spiky hair tattoo. But my question is, should they? Should Mario Mandzukic's profile be so big that he's the face of this game?
I mean, for us, but he doesn't play for Barcelona, Real Madrid, or a Premier League team.
That's for Juventus.
Well, now that Ronaldo plays there, I guess Fox can feature him. I don't know what the rule is there. But yes, I think he should be because
Ronaldo's sidekick.
He is not... Yes, that's probably what it will be. He is not Modric or Rakitic, and they should and rightfully do get top billing because of both who they play for but what they offer to this team. But yeah, I think Mandzukic...
And maybe because what they do is a bit more aesthetically pleasing. Right? You could maybe put together a highlight reel and be, look at Modric's silky skills.
I can't remember if it was Fox that did put out a big poster for it. Somebody has, and it was a big head of Pogba, like a quarter inch away from a big head of Modric. So Mandzukic was on there, I think, at some point.
Was Modric standing on a box?
It did look a little bit like they were about to kiss, which was a weird way to promote the World Cup final. But I think Mandzukic was on there, and that's what he probably should be, is like looming in the background, an ever-present possibility.
Can we talk about him specifically?
On the Star Wars poster, he would be off in the corner looking menacing.
Can we talk about Mandzukic specifically?
Sure.
Why do we think he's so underrated in terms of profile, but why do we think he's so effective?
Sure, and I think I'll crib from Joseph Lowry, the aforementioned, briefly to say that one thing, I think like Russia stood out in my head because he was the one who lost Fernandez for the equalizer, right?
Mandzukic,
yeah. And that was because I think
he didn't so much lose him as just put up a lame jump.
I think because he was so tired, and that stands out in my head, but the point that Joseph Lowry was making is that goal against England was good if it had been scored in the 5th minute. The fact that it was so late into extra time after they'd already played 2 games that went to extra time, it shows how locked in and focused Mario Mandzukic can be.
What's weird to me, though, is he did have a moment. So this goal we're talking about, the Mandzukic winner against England, when the cross from the left came in and it was a bad cross and got half deflected or half cleared by Kyle Walker, Mandzukic puts his head down like, give up. And then somehow, I think we said he reboots.
Yeah.
Like, it's just amazing to me that he both did the wrong thing and then the right things so quickly in succession.
It speaks to, like, this is a very... like confusing way to try to explain this, but it speaks to the way Croatia seem to approach their games, which is that they're never like satisfied enough, but they're also never like so down on their performance that Mandzukic can have that momentary frustration.
Oh, so he was dissatisfied with the quality of the cross.
Then instantly
he expects more.
Is back into it and isn't going to sit there and sulk and put his hands in the air and stare and whatever. It's like, okay, we're right back on it. And that seems sort of like this Croatia team from top to bottom, that it's very much, okay, we've gone to go down, well, let's find a way back. Let's all keep working. Let's all keep fighting. Let's all be... And it's never... I feel like you don't see them be mad because the system hasn't worked. You'll never see the guy dribble down and cross and then everybody screams at him because he's supposed to cut inside and lay the ball off to Modric.
Yeah.
And maybe that's because they don't have that sort of rigid system in place. But either way, it feels like a team that is sort of built to deal with the chaos of the knockout round.
That's a good way to put it. Other thing I want to talk about with Mario Mandzukic, because I think he really is important. He is a target in the box. He is a really great finisher. If he's presented with a one-on-one chance, you'd put your money on him scoring, right? He also has, to use a wonderful old cliche, a good touch for a big man.
Oh, no.
I said it.
You've gone that route.
But it's true. Well, I think, again, if you're a casual fan watching the World Cup, you might not be thinking, they should play to the feet of that guy.
Yeah.
But they should play to the feet of that guy.
Yeah.
He comes deep, he shows, he lays it off, and there is what Juan Carlos Osorio would call a synchronization, where Mandzukic comes and shows, and the wingers, Perisic or Rebic, will run off of him, expecting the layoff.
I would say it's telling in that Perisic especially makes that run before the ball has been played.
Yes,
like it is,
we've seen this a lot.
He can see Mandzukic shaping to receive that pass, usually from Modric or Rakitic, like 25 yards yards away, and you'll see Perisic immediately started to make that run off into the channel or in behind for like a little bit of a flick, and then Perisic is in.
So look out for Croatia building plays that way through Mandzukic's come and showing, right?
Yeah.
Take it with his chest, with his feet, even with his head, he can flick it on for Perisic to run onto or for Rebic to run onto.
We came into this game with me feeling like France were the favorites, and I had a feeling that France were going to win. The more we talk about this, the more I'm starting to lean towards I think it might be Croatia. Just because France seem like they have certain things they very much want to do. And if those things don't work, it does feel like it kind of breaks down and relies on individual ability. And Croatia, it just seems sort of like they're the person in the movie. He's always like, yeah, okay, that's fine. Like they just don't get too bothered by stuff. It's sort of like, oh, that's not working. Okay, let's go over here. Oh, that's not working. Yeah, they're just kind of good to go with the flow, provided you don't play the Eagles.
The final thing that relates to Mandzukic and the whole Croatian team, and I think ties in with what you just said, is Croatia's press.
Sure.
So Croatia definitely pressed teams. They pressed England and mostly forced England to play more direct and not to be able to play out of the back like they theoretically wanted to. But it's not a really super organised press, right? And maybe because at international level, you can't have a super organised press because you can't have all the Liverpool players in every day like Jurgen Klopp does and explain where all the zones are and how we do it or how Guardiola does it. You know what I'm saying? There's not enough time to have something super intricate. And yet, Croatia's press has mostly been working.
Yeah.
I think.
I think there's definitely the one trigger that we spotted for sure is that once the team that they're playing starts to go backwards with the ball in a way that isn't planned. It's not, the center back's just going to move it back and forth, whatever. But when it's left back was dribbling forward, cuts it back, plays it to left center back plays it back to the goalkeeper, you will see usually Mario Mandzukic continue to charge that ball down until eventually it's kicked long. What you won't see is a lot of other players going with him. You won't have like a whole front four of Croatia blocking off every pass. It's just sort of a run that ball down and make him kick it long without really being able to plan where it's going to land.
I've only just realised the thing that they do. If you see Mandzukic pressing, say, a French defender with the ball, you will usually see Modric or Rakitic, the two free central midfielders, helping him, right? They'll press with him. I think you don't see as much Rebic and Perisic pressing up high.
Yeah.
And I think that's because maybe part of, if there is any organisation to the press, is that the wingers don't surrender the wings.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Because you definitely see Perisic and Rebic doing a more defensive job and coming back. You mentioned this earlier, right? Like extra fullbacks sometimes. So maybe that's how they are able to do a somewhat chaotic, borderline haphazard press without getting caught out because the wingers stay back a little bit.
That makes sense because I think we talked about like with Belgium, how do you like game plan to keep the fullbacks pinned back so that they can't then facilitate attacks. And what Croatia did, which was very interesting to me, was basically they dropped their own wingers back and kind of invited those fullbacks to come forward with the idea that you guys can come forward, but we've got people here to deal with you. So that then makes sense that, you crowd the wings to force them into like the center of the pitch where then you can kind of collapse upon them.
Should we talk France? I feel like we've talked a lot of Croatia here.
I'll just say, well, then if my final thing on Croatia that like I keep going back to is I've been trying to figure out how it is that they keep managing to pull out wins in extra time or penalty shootouts. And there's...
Because games should be 2 hours long.
Exactly. That's definitely it.
Maybe all soccer matches in Croatia are 2 hours long.
Yeah. That's totally it. No, it goes back to, this is random and probably apocryphal, but there's...
Oh, Ted has pulled his phone out. What's going on? There's
a report from the Logistic Operations and Readiness Division of the United States military.
Okay.
Whether or not this is true, I don't know. But I basically couldn't find a common thread for like what Croatia do, how it is that they pull out these late winners, except for this is a document describing the U.S. military from three different organizations. The first one is the Russian military document. One of the serious problems in planning against the American doctrine is that the Americans do not read their manuals, nor do they feel any obligation to follow their doctrine. The second one comes from the German military.
Wait, is that true? Is that a thing people say about the U.S. military?
I think so, yes. The one is the German military. The reason that the American army does so well in wartime is that war is chaos, and the American army practices chaos on a daily basis. Wow. The final one comes from an American military source. If we don't know what we're doing, the enemy certainly can't anticipate our future actions. So I feel like all of that informs Croatia a little bit, which is that when you're in the moment and you succeed through sort of improvisation and chaos. You get used to improvisation and chaos, and you sort of learn how to adapt within that. And if you're a team that's playing with structure and we have to do this, and we have to be here, and we have to play like this, and you haven't game planned for extra time, then you're trying to figure it out as you go. Whereas Croatia are sort of sitting back like, yeah, let's do this. We've been here before.
I like it.
All right.
I like it.
Thank you for dealing with me quoting probably apocryphal quotes, but whatever.
They were good, though. They were good. Let's talk France.
Sure.
So we've talked about what Croatia might do, Croatia's press. How will France deal with Croatia's press if they do send it? So I'm picturing maybe Lloris has taken a short goal kick and he's given the ball to Raphael Varane, right? He's got maybe Samuel Umtiti next to him. He's got Conte and Pogba around him. What does he do?
Well, first of all, I don't necessarily think that the French are adverse to boot that ball long. They've got Olivier Giroud up there. He's more than happy to challenge for headers. And I think
we do have a game of two target men, don't we? Giroud at one end and Mandzukic at the other.
We certainly do. Yeah, and so like in that situation, do you want to kick it long?
Game, see?
But like it goes back to what I thought. Like in the moment, I did not realize this. It was definitely Croatia pressuring England. But at the time, one of the things I was thinking as we watched it live was, I think England are trying to bypass that press. They don't want to get caught in possession. They don't want to put the popcorn on the stove. Brought it back. Instead, they want to kick it long and just kind of evade all that, get the ball into Croatia's half, and then pressure them.
Yeah.
And I do think that is one way you can deal with it. Is you can try to go long and give the ball back to Croatia, or at least put them under pressure.
So Giroud flick onto Mbappe kind of thing.
Because otherwise you kick it out of bounds 20 yards, and now Croatia have a throw in from 40 yards from your goal.
But are you suggesting that France are incapable of passing through Croatia's press?
Don't you set up straw man arguments. I see what you're doing over here. I'm saying that they won't be adverse to that. They're not going to be like slavishly devoted to, we must play to the outside backs at all costs.
Yeah.
But I think they're more than capable of doing that, especially because they've got the personnel in the middle, like Paul Pogba, who could probably hold off 4 humans at once and continue to dribble.
I mean, we've seen it. You say that like it's hyperbole. We've literally seen that happen.
We have. But I do think then going along with that is a key part of, say, what differentiates France from England, is that we saw one moment when we were rewatching of England get the ball in transition. I think Jordan Henderson has been played the ball by Jordan Pickford. He turns, and it's kind of like, I'll lay it off. Like, he doesn't really want to drive forward with it. Paul Pogba will drive forward with that ball. And I think that's one way you get away from that press, is you dribble past it once, and suddenly you've created space. Now you can play that like raking ball forward, or you can dribble it yourself.
Press is interesting that way. If you do dribble past one person, you almost can break like an entire line, and you could be away.
Especially when it is...
Be brave, Paul Pogba. Then it'll be an entertaining game.
Especially when it's Mario Mandzukic running forward as fast as he can to try to put pressure on Lloris, and maybe Rebic goes with him, or maybe Perisic, but maybe not both, and maybe not Modric.
No, I was saying Modric and Rakitic go with him. Perisic and Rebic stay wide.
That's fine. Yeah. But like all I'm saying is that like when it's 1 or 2 players trying to press and everybody else is sitting back, you can bypass that if you have a player with the confidence and self-belief to turn and dribble away from it.
It's not. I don't think it's insignificant that Samuel Umtiti, I think, is very, very comfortable on the ball. We
just
don't
keep his
talk
hands
about
at his sides, but yeah.
Yes, he's not so great with the handballs, but I think he's a very calm, composed player with the ball.
Yeah.
He could be a key to just playing out of the back.
Yeah, and Varane as well. I think they're both not uniquely, very adept at playing the ball out of the back and staying calm under pressure.
I want to talk about France's fullbacks. So Pavard on one side, Hernandez on the other. They were not the fullbacks we expected.
And Mendy in our hearts.
And Mendy in our hearts. He was my left back in my underused substitute 11. But
I had a feeling.
But purely emotionally, because Hernandez has been great.
He has.
He hasn't put a foot wrong. Mendy's back from injury. It's all fine. But Pavard and Hernandez will stretch and go deep, very, very deep, and essentially be France's wingers.
Yes.
Yeah? Is that fair to say?
I think so.
Yeah.
I mean, and I think that is interesting because it gets more bodies in there, and it frees up the people theoretically on the wing like Mbappe or Matuidi to go inside, but then it does leave space for that long ball from Croatia into Mario Mandzukic and runners coming off of him. It leaves space, and so this is what we talk about, where it could be a very captivating game and kind of open and end-to-end, or it could be France not wanting to concede anything, being a little bit cautious, Croatia not wanting to get exposed, and it's a lot of back and forth, like maybe just testing the waters, testing no man's land, but never really fully committing.
Okay, so one man we haven't talked in detail about yet is the game breaker. That's how I think of him. Kylian Mbappe. He does have the type of, what do we call it? Pace with a plan.
Yep.
Right? He's not just fast. He knows where he's going and what he's going to do when he gets there. Genuinely, like, next level dangerous. I think you have to game plan for. right?
Yeah, I think that's definitely true.
Will Croatia game plan for Kylian Mbappe? And if so, what will they do? I'll give you time to think by just pointing out that, say, Strinic, the left back, who is mostly going to be matched up against Mbappe. I'm not sure how fast he is, but he is not as fast as Mbappe, right? So he is in trouble if he's ever in any type of 1v1 situation. Brozovic can slide over, maybe, but he can't be everywhere at once, right? So if Brozovic is over on the right-hand side and Mbappe is coming down Croatia's left, Brozovic isn't there to help.
No. And it's an issue that we've talked about previously with Croatia when we kind of said we don't really know how they solve it. It's if you drop everybody back because you don't want to give Mbappe space, you don't want to get into a foot race with him. All right, well then we'll stay a little bit deeper. We'll put like cheat numbers over onto his side. That's how we'll deal with it. But now you've kept your numbers back. You've pulled your midfielders back. You're going to have a huge gap between that midfield and that attack. You're not really going to be able to get attacks going.
Honestly, though, I still think that's Croatia's best chance is for at least some stretch of the game to just collapse back and frustrate France.
But also otherwise, if they step forward and try to like keep a compact space between the center backs and Mario Mandzukic, you're then leaving a lot of space behind for Kylian Mbappe to run into. So my guess is to say that they will figure it out, and it will be an interesting way they figure it out. But I think you're right. It will probably err on the side of keep numbers back, don't let him turn and dribble at you. That might mean maybe we take turns seeing who fouls him. That might mean you immediately have people over or you try to cut supply to Kylian Mbappe. The one thing I would caution against for Croatia, because I'm sure they'll be listening, is that you have Kylian Mbappe, but like Antoine Griezmann was the player that everybody was pumped about last tournament, even heading into this tournament when he had to do his own decision, which was a bad decision, but whatever. Like, he is equally capable, and if you get too caught focusing on a Kylian Mbappe, Antoine Griezmann is more than happy to dribble at a defense and score.
Maybe the key, I'm thinking on the fly here, maybe the key for Croatia is to, again, deputise those wingers as defensive players.
I think that's it.
You get Perisic running back with Mbappe, and you get Rebic running back to cover for any Griezmann and Hernandez double teams down the one side, and Pavard and Mbappe down the right. You get Perisic.
I think you're absolutely right. I think that's probably what they'll end up having to do. And then for Croatia to win, it really does genuinely rely on Rakitic and Modric having perfect games or near perfect games. Because if those wingers are sitting back, if you want to try to alleviate any of that pressure, if you want to try to get your own attacks going, it's incumbent upon them to receive the ball calmly, turn under pressure, find ways to distribute or find ways to link up with Mandzukic and not just dump the ball into the channels and let your defense reset. It's going to be relying on them to facilitate the attack.
That leads us to the final and to me most interesting thing about Croatia's tactical shape, which is that very often Modric and Rakitic, the two central midfielders, end up more advanced than the two wingers.
Yeah.
It's a weirdly imbalanced shape that ends up looking like a Christmas tree.
Yeah.
Yeah.
4-3-2-1.
4-3-2-1, yeah, the most Christmas tree of all formations. I really think that's worth keeping an eye on because I think if you watch a lot of soccer, you might just think, oh yeah, I understand the shape. It's a 4-2-3-1. Here's how it's supposed to look. You're supposed to have the wingers up high and the midfielders deep, and it's often the other way around. It's a weirdly, it's like going to war against someone who just uses unorthodox tactics, right? So you might find that some of the things you normally do suddenly don't work because everything's inside out.
That works. So I think we've said plenty about the World Cup final. Yep. Unless you have anything else to add, my friend?
I think we've been assuming a lot about what Croatia will do. Is there any chance that Kramaric comes back and they go with that midfield, or any other weird? If Dalic goes with any other weird sort of shape intended for this World Cup final?
It's always a possibility if you want the cop-out answer, but that's the reality. Is that, they could do that, but I think...
But we don't know about it, so we can't talk about it.
Yeah, exactly. They've done unorthodox things at times, but I would still expect to see Brozovic just to patrol the middle and keep it locked down.
All right, last chance for any World Cup final preview thoughts, Taylor. You got anything else you want to add to the pile?
I am good to go.
All right, then I'll see you back here, 11 a.m. on Sunday, to watch the World Cup final, Croatia versus France. We have more to talk about.
I was going to say, you're kind of ending the show with several segments to go.
Including the 2022 World Cup. Today's show is sponsored by Roughneck Scarves. Roughneck Scarves are longtime sponsors of the Total Soccer Show. You can buy Major League Soccer scarves. You can buy national team scarves. They have the special US Women's National Team collection, which we featured in the previous ad. you can also design your own custom scarf. So here's the question I put up on Twitter, Taylor. If you were to design a custom Roughneck scarf to represent Sunday's World Cup final, what would it look like?
Trent Larson. It would have Modric on one side with the Infinity Gauntlet smiling. I'm assuming that's Modric smiling, not the Infinity Gauntlet.
Yep.
And on the other, Mbappe with a French-themed The Flash outfit running across the full length of the scarf. So we've gone DC versus MCU over here.
Oh, I didn't think about that. Very nice. Did he get the teams the right way around, representing the two different comic books?
I mean, I guess the World Cup final will determine which one is the winner and which one is the loser, because there right now is a pretty obvious one when it comes to MCU versus DC.
Oh, I don't know which one you could mean. Costa Caliagas says his scarf would have 25% tricolor, 75% checkerboard. To remind everyone, Croatia has played one full additional game to France. I didn't realize that math until reading Costa's tweet. But 3 sets of 30 minutes equals 90.
Yikes.
Yeah.
Yikes. That's a lot. Andrew Abernathy, final one. Atlas, carrying the weight of the world, wearing glittering pog cleats, surrounded by a field of checkerboard painted banana peels.
I have a couple of questions about this one. What are pog cleats?
I mean, I guess you'll have to ask Andrew. I'm assuming those would be Paul Pogba's cleats.
Does he wear special cleats, though?
No, but I think there was the thing with, like, Pogback, and then he and Zlatan made the joke about, like, Pogba scores a Pog goal with a Pog ball.
Oh, so you just Pog everything.
Yes.
Yeah. So they could win the Pog Cup.
Yeah.
The Pog World Cup. All right. Well, thank you, Trent, Costa, and
No,
Andrew.
it's always way clumsier than that. So it would be like the Pog Up or something.
Thank you to everybody who submitted Roughneck ideas. If you go to roughneckscarves.com, you can get 20% off anything you see. That's 1/5 off of anything you see at roughneckscarves.com by using the discount code Total Soccer Show, all one word, Total Soccer Show, for 20% off.
All right. Thank you to Roughneck Scarves for sponsoring today's episode of the Total Soccer Show. We've talked a lot about the 2018 World Cup. I'm going to say we've talked about the World Cup more than any other podcast.
But there's one more thing to talk about.
But there's one more World Cup to talk about.
No, there's one more game to talk about.
Do we have to talk about this one? Are we doing this?
The third.
I'm so happy to move us on to 2022.
Very briefly,
All right.
The third place playoff, England v Belgium, is happening on Saturday. It's an official World Cup game.
Yes.
Yes, it is. All right, I'm going to... For some reason, I feel like it's my mission to try and sell you on this now. We're not going to review it as a whole game on TSS. We might touch on it if it's a great end-to-end goalmouth action 5-4 game, right? What I've read is... I'm just going to share my research with you. Martinez has said, same tactics, lots of different players.
Yeah.
That's what's going to happen. England have said, we're going to make as few changes as possible.
Yep.
So how about that? Trippier won't play because of that groin injury that kept him out at the end of the Croatia game. So Trent Alexander-Arnold will play. But it seems we'll get quite a similar England team to we've seen throughout the tournament.
And then it comes down to which team is more excited to be in a third-place game.
Yeah.
Is how I feel like it goes a lot of the time when it comes to those types of games.
I think it could be interesting because this isn't a Germany-Brazil third-place game where... You know, we always get the semi-finals. This isn't a big deal. I think England and Belgium getting this far is a big deal for both teams. So there may be a celebratory atmosphere around it.
That could be.
Yeah.
But it's strange to say, but I feel like the third place game is one of the times when I genuinely believe that it comes down to which team really wants to be there.
Yeah.
Because in most other competitions, everybody wants to be there. Everybody's trying to win. Maybe less so in the Europa League. But here, it doesn't... So it really does come down to, like, if you're like going back to the Gold Cup when the United States lost to Panama, was it in the third place game? I think way back when in like 2015, something like that.
I had my memory wiped.
Yeah, that's fair. But it's that sort of moment. It's like when there's a team that feels like, we shouldn't have been out of this round, or do we really want to be playing in a third place game versus a team that's like, heck yeah, third place game.
But that's what I'm trying to say to you is that neither team feels that way because neither team even really expected to get this far.
And what I'm trying to say is I hope that's the case. We will see on Saturday.
The other narrative element here is Harry Kane has 6 goals.
Yep.
Lukaku has 4 goals. Probably both play, and there'll be some sort of shootout. So I think if you're going to watch it, what to watch for, this always happens in third place games, you will see strikers being overserved. You know what I'm saying? Like teammates looking for Harry Kane, maybe more than they would have, or maybe trying to force a pass to Harry Kane when he's 20% on, and let's say Raheem Sterling is 70% on. They'll be looking for Harry Kane a bit more.
I agree. Weirdly, I'm aware that this is probably a very bad take, so feel free to shoot this one down hard.
Hang on. Let me get my popcorn.
There's a part of me that... I told you not to put on the stuff. There's a part of me that feels like it might not be for the best from a tabloid standpoint for Harry Kane to score a goal in this game. because I saw a lot of frustration online about Harry Kane's performance and about how he, score a bunch of goals against teams that don't matter, but in the games when it does, where did he go? And so suddenly if he comes out against Belgium in the third place game and scores like a hat trick, I don't think that narrative goes away. It becomes like, well, where were those goals in the last game?
I would trade, if I was Harry Kane, I would trade a couple of days of like bitter headlines
to be the Golden Boot winner.
To have the World Cup Golden Boot. You get to keep that forever.
That's true.
Yeah?
I think I just always think about...
Get that World Cup Golden Boot.
I always have this idea of like,
claim
who
goals that
cares
weren't even
about
yours
that
if you have
award?
to.
Yeah, all right. Really see that? I guess that's the thing is like, I go back to, I always have this idea like, do these players really care about those or did they just want to win the World Cup?
Yeah, because I think, yes, first of all, yes, they want to win the World Cup. I think most people would have 0 goals and a World Cup, right? But if you can't do that and it's the third place game, really, you want the Golden Boot, right? People remember the Golden Boot winner. I know the name of Just Fontaine because he was the World Cup Golden Boot winner. I don't know anything else about him, but your name lives in history if you're the top scorer at a World Cup. I can't believe I have to convince you on this. I think we're on a terrible morning radio show.
You only have to convince me when it comes to Golden Boot because... like what you're saying there is like they're all going to be trying to get him goals. It makes it an individual thing in a time when it's supposed to be about the team playing.
Not to a laughable degree, but just a little more than usual is what I'm saying. Plus, Ruben Loftus-Cheek will get to play, so it's worth watching. Just
will he though, or are they going to make as few changes as possible?
I don't know. RLC will get some minutes. Put it that way.
But my entire goal with this segment was to make sure that in no way did I commit to when you text me tomorrow and say it's a pretty good game. You want to go to the studio? That I'm in any way obligated. Because that will happen.
All right, moving on to 2022.
So no response to that one?
So the announcement was today. Am I correct?
Yes.
The announcement was today that the 2022 World Cup, we kind of knew this already, right, is going to be played.
Yeah.
In Qatar, we knew this, but they announced the date. It is, looks at chalkboard, 21st of November 2022 to the 18th of December 2022.
Yep.
So I know the reasons, but why, Taylor? Why are they moving the World Cup to November, December?
Because, and here's the groundbreaker for you, it's hot in the desert in the summer.
It's 122 degrees Fahrenheit hot in Qatar in the summer.
It is.
Yes.
It's dry heat, which genuinely is a thing, but that doesn't really mean anything when you're playing.
You still get dehydrated.
Yeah,
when you're
and also, to be fair, when you have thousands of fans there at the various stadiums around the country, I feel like they're all just going to be bumping into each other given the size of the country, but whatever. Yes, so then there's also that to be concerned with.
Okay, so we have a lot of thoughts and opinions about the World Cup being in Qatar at all and how that happened. But first, let's start with the idea of this November-December World Cup. The first thing I saw is a lot of people asking, how are we going to do this logistically? It's in the middle of multiple seasons.
It is.
The answer is, from what I understand, that seasons will just be reorganised.
Yep.
Right? The Premier League, for example, will have a gap from just before the start of the World Cup to just after the start of the World Cup. And maybe it'll creep earlier into that summer and maybe a little later that spring.
Yep.
But that's how this is going to get worked out, right? It's not going to happen at the same time as any league play.
Yeah. And I think, first of all, I think it will be that. And I think it will be, as you said, extended from start of the tournament to end of the tournament because you can't really just do it. Like MLS right now does the group stage, and then they go back to regular.
The break from it? Yeah, more or less.
I don't think you can do that when you're the Premier League.
No.
Because you'll still have so many players missing.
Yeah.
I think
and then people will say, the whole season doesn't count because these 3 games here, no team, the teams didn't have their best players. Yeah.
Yeah. And I really do think.
Also, no one would turn up to watch Premier League reserves play in the Premier League.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This is like the age-old lesson taught by parents the world over. Just tell the truth from the start, man. If Qatar had said, "Look, we are not going to be able to host this in the
we're
summer,"
on the angry part now. Okay,
no, we're not really because I guess we are. But what I meant to say was I don't think it's that big of a deal. I really don't. I think I've seen people complaining about, it's going to be in the winter. It's a different vibe. And to that, I saw half of the planet respond, "Yeah, when we watch it for you guys, it's summer. For us, it's winter." That's an argument I really don't care about. I think it would be interesting.
It's a very European/American argument.
It sure is.
Yeah.
And I think the World Cup's the World Cup. It's going to be interesting.
Yes.
I think it's a lot of people looking for reason to be mad, and there's plenty of reason to be mad. This is not one of them because to me it's you're going to have a month off from the season when you're going to get to watch the World Cup, and then instead of it being what do we do now? It's right back into the Premier League season or the Bundesliga or whatever season you have.
That's true. And the upside of this, if we're looking for one, is I think during Thanksgiving over here and in the run-up to the holidays, I think it's a great time to have a World Cup. It's a really good. We had someone tweet us. I'm sorry, I didn't take note of the name, but someone said, "At least I won't have to watch the Lions, the Detroit Lions."
That's good
on Thanksgiving.
Yeah, I mean, I'll speak from a straight up commercial standpoint. It is terrific for us from a downloads. Like, we already have advertisers who are more inclined to advertise around the holiday season.
Yes,
like holiday season plus World Cup equals.
I hadn't thought about that.
Yeah,
so I'm all in on 2022.
Let's make sure we keep going until 2022. Yeah.
But I just realised what you're upset. Sorry, upset's a bad word.
Yeah.
But what you're angry about.
I'm upset. It's fine.
Correctly is, even though it's fine to have a World Cup in November, December, that's not how it was sold.
Nope.
It was sold as, we can do this in Qatar in June and July. Don't worry about those 122 degree Fahrenheit temperatures. We'll fix that with some weird outdoor air conditioning. And people on the FIFA Executive Committee voted for that.
Oh no. Air-conditioned stadia, which would be primarily underground with covering so that you could provide shade for even the players on the field if you wanted to, with underground access to the stadium. And those where you can't have underground access would be air-conditioned for the entire length of the walkway. Yeah, that was what was initially promised in that bid.
Wow. Uh-huh. Yeah, so that bid was accepted, and now this is, I guess, Qatar admitting, and to some extent FIFA, although FIFA has had big turnover since, admitting, yeah, that was never really realistic. Here's our attempt to fix it.
I think on the day it was awarded, they were like, yeah, we're going to investigate possibilities of moving the tournament. Immediately. Which, to me, says, yeah, there was a bid packet put in front of the FIFA Executive Committee, and then they said, yeah, that looks like a thick bid packet. Can we have our money now? is how I really do feel about it.
And nothing has been proven, right, as far as we know, but there were definitely members of the FIFA Executive Committee. Remember, the 2022 and 2018 World Cups were voted for differently to how the recent 2026 one, when each member nation had a vote. There was a smaller committee. It seems like financial contributions, both above and below board, were made to various members in exchange for Qatar's vote.
Or to paraphrase then FIFA General Secretary Jerome, to paraphrase Jerome Valcke, I believe it was, there's no evidence of bribery, just that Qatar flexed its considerable financial muscle. No idea what that means.
It means it's not bribery?
Goodness gracious. Yeah. And I think it's the flagrant way in which that was conducted, combined with the way it has since been portrayed, or at least the way FIFA have tried to have it portrayed, that Sepp Blatter, his default right up until he was removed for things relating to this, as well as other alleged crimes, was to say the Middle East has never had a representative, or they've never had a World Cup.
Yeah.
Totally true. The Arab world deserves a World Cup because you're supposed to represent the entire world. But that doesn't just mean that I just find that so frustrating, because it feels like that is set up to be if you're opposed to the Qatar World Cup, then you're against it being in the Middle East. I see how it is. And it's no, now what I'm saying, you could have put it in anywhere. I would have just preferred it be in a place where there was transparency and clearly not a bribe to get the World Cup to happen.
And while we're on it, it's worth pointing out to everybody, because we may have people who don't know about this, because of the system that was used to get workers to go and work on the stadia.
This is the primary reason why I'm so angry about this.
More than 1,000 people have died building the stadia that will host the 2022 World Cup so far. There are 4 more years to go, and more than 1,000 people have died already.
More than 1,200 people have
died.
More than 1,200 people have died. Is... It's not me being pedantic here when it's 200 people, because that's 200 people who are dead. And to put this in perspective, worth noting, I think the second most fatalities relating to a large scale construction operation, because you're looking at the World Cup or the Olympics, was Sochi, the Summer Olympics,
2014,
60 people. So 20 times more than that have died already for the construction of these stadiums. Yeah. So it is one where we have been asked many times, do we have plans to go to Russia? We did not. Do we have plans to go to Qatar? We certainly do not. And, I've been to the Middle East. I enjoyed my time in the Middle East. But it's the level of human atrocity that is happening for the purpose of sport is not a thing that I think would be able to overlook. That is my angry rant about Qatar.
All right, co-signed.
Yes.
All right.
But when we turn up as the official sponsors and spokespeople for the Qatar World Cup, I'm sure someone will play me this sound clip.
This is worth pointing out. There's so much money. There will be lots and lots of PR pieces in the build-up to this.
Think what you will about forced labor.
Yes, right? Yeah, the equivalent of think what you like about Stalin will maybe be about the kafala system. You know what I mean?
It'll probably be about, I don't know, their struggle to exist as an island nation now once Saudi Arabia finishes digging their trench.
Oh, okay.
Am I making it too real? I'm making it too real, aren't I?
Yeah, because there's still the diplomatic embargo surrounding Qatar right now.
It's going to be great, though. Good stuff, FIFA.
All right, should we move on to happier things?
We should.
We're not going to, are we?
We're not, because I want to say one more thing, which is just, like, there was so many angry tweets I saw when John Strong dropped that line of, like, Iceland beats Argentina 1-1.
Yeah.
And so many people are like, oh my God, I can't believe they're going to be the host of 2026. Like, can you believe, like, first of all, obviously that's a joke on John Strong's part, but so many people seem ready for the 2026 World Cup to just be, oh, Americans, they're, and like, oh, it's not going to be that good. I'm just saying, it's not going to be Qatar. And if you're complaining about 2026 and not taking a hard look at how you feel about Qatar, then I don't know what to tell you.
Well, let's see how American politics shakes out for the next few years.
I'm going to go stand and stare out a window for the next 20 minutes. Daryl, you got this.
For the next 5 minutes, we're talking Total Soccer Show Scouting Network. This is where we look to the future. We look at the up-and-coming players around the world, but also quite a lot of American players.
We certainly do. Dale Grove, I invite you to go first.
Okay, so
for a reason.
First report comes from Alan Bedford. Alan Bedford is scouting Jonathan Lewis, the 21-year-old American forward for NYCFC. Alan says Jonathan Lewis finally started getting minutes after Jesse Marsh became the coach of NYCFC. Now Marsh is gone, but young Jonathan, I'm very confused here. Young Jonathan had the opportunity to shine in the New York Derby match. In the 85th minute, he made a sweet cross to Maxi Morales, who slotted in to give the Blues a 1-0 win. Why do we have a report where Jesse Marsh was the coach of NYCFC?
I'm going to assume that was like the current coverage permeating Alan's brain. I'm guessing he was talking about Patrick Vieira, who also departed for a European club.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So he's got his New York coaches confused.
I think so.
There has been a New York, New Jersey exodus of
there
coaches.
Has. And Alan, I thought about editing that, and then I decided, no, we must name and shame.
I mean, Alan, I would have edited. I would have just put in Patrick Vieira. So, if anything, Alan is paying too much attention to what's going on.
It's possible that I read Alan's scouting report after we had started talking about covering Qatar in this episode, and maybe those two things are combined.
Well, the second report's for you, Tyler.
Okay. Alexander King scouting Tyler Adams, the 19-year-old American defender/midfielder for Red Bull, which I loved. Adams may be following his coach to RB Leipzig. Let the preparations for the next cycle begin, says Alexander.
Jesse Marsh actually has gone to RB Leipzig to be the assistant, and it looks like Tyler Adams is going to go with him.
Our friends on the World Cup comedy tour, the Cooligans, they sent a tweet that was like, Tyler Adams achieves his goal of like moving to RB Leipzig to be an assistant midfielder.
Yep.
And there were a lot of people who were confused by that one.
A lot of people made fun of them, saying, you don't even know how midfield. Connor Siegel is scouting Brooks Lennon, the 20-year-old American winger/right back for Real Salt Lake. Connor says Brooks Lennon started his 16th straight match at right back for RSL as they downed conference leaders FC Dallas 2-0 at Rio Tinto. Lennon continued to shine in his new role as he shut down Dallas's attackers while tormenting their defence with his near-constant movement. Brooks Lennon, fullback of the future.
Chris Goodwin scouting Mackenzie Gaines, the 20-year-old American attacker for Darmstadt. As reported by StarsandStripesFC.com, quote, Gaines has taken part in a couple friendlies for Darmstadt over the last couple weeks. While the competition has been extremely weak, the 20-year-old has done his part, finding the back of the net 4 times in 21-0 and 10-0 blowouts.
Excuse me?
Stop. They're already dead many times over.
Do you feel like this happens in Germany a lot?
Yes.
There's a lot of weird preseason friendlies that are very, very, very one-sided.
Yes. I think it's players trying to prove themselves for larger clubs playing against much smaller clubs.
But what is even the point? Maybe there's some other level to this that we don't know about where the smaller team makes some good money by hosting bigger teams.
That could be.
You know what I'm saying? Like Darmstadt comes to town, so in that region it's probably a bigger deal than when they play their normal smaller
Or is
opponents?
it the periodic time in the Bundesliga preseason when they use NFL scoring? And so it's actually 3-0, and then the other one was a touchdown and a field goal.
That sounds more likely.
Yeah, it seems like it. Anyway, last year was very disappointing after Gaines' move from Wolfsburg to the 2 Bundesliga. So we'll see if he can push and become a regular member of the squad this season.
Ed Ritter is scouting Ben Mines, the 18-year-old American attacker for New York Red Bull 2. Ed says Ben Mines has been selected to play in the MLS homegrown game against the Tigres under-20 team on July 31st. Got some news for you, Taylor.
What you got?
We're going to that game.
We are.
I've just decided.
Okay.
But we do have our show, part of the World Cup Comedy Tour in Atlanta on the 30th. The actual All-Star game is August 1st. in between, there's the homegrown game. If you look at the homegrown roster, it is top to bottom Total Soccer Show Scouting Network players.
And we got the one so far. I'm guessing the scouting reports will come in.
They're all in there.
We go.
All in there. So we got to go see it, right?
I think so.
Yeah, all right.
I would like that to happen.
Next report.
Alex Wayman-Farrell scouting Harry Wilson, the 21-year-old Welsh winger for Liverpool. Harry Wilson scored a brace in Liverpool's 7-0 preseason, lots of blowouts, preseason victory against Chester. His development has been fantastic so far, and rumors are that he is set to sign a new contract with the Reds. That said, it seems like another loan to a championship or low-level Premier League side is likely.
I think this might be proving my point as well. Chester is near Liverpool, so that may be the sort of a regional friendly that is beneficial for Chester.
All right.
You know what I'm saying? Anyway, Calvin
Or,
Derleth.
once again, was it NFL scoring, and it was actually 1-0.
1-0. Calvin Derleth is scouting Kennedy, the 22-year-old Brazilian winger/wingback for Chelsea. Calvin says it was confirmed over the weekend that Kennedy is likely to return to Newcastle for another season-long loan, pending medical evaluations and final negotiations. It seems like a win-win, as Rafa liked the much-needed extra bite the young Brazilian gave to the team's attack. And Kennedy said he learned a lot from Rafa and would be happy to return for this upcoming season. And of course, getting real playing time versus sitting on Chelsea's bench is a big benefit.
That checks out. And then I think Calvin added that he really loves this because it's his scoutee, or his scout, the player he scouts, playing for his favorite club alongside one of his favorite American players. So it all works out. Yes, yes. Stephen Brandt scouting Christian Pavón, the 21-year-old Argentine forward for Boca. Did he make your list of players who should have been included more?
No, because he did get some time in the end.
There we go. Well, Steven says Boca confirmed that Pavón, who had been linked with moves to Arsenal and Barcelona, signed a new deal with a €50 million release clause.
Does that mean he's more likely to leave or less likely to leave?
I think more likely to leave.
Right. Because €50 million doesn't sound that much for someone like Pavón, right?
No, it really doesn't.
We've seen a bit of him.
But what I'm hoping, though, and I know this is just conversion, but what I really wish was that it was like written. I don't know the Argentine currency. I apologize. But I wish it had been written like in Spanish with everything else, except for the buyout clause being in euros, because that's where it's going to go.
For some reason, that made me laugh a lot. Shane Thomas is scouting Justin Kluivert, the 19-year-old Dutch winger for AS Roma. I forgot this had happened. Mm-hmm. Shane says Justin Kluivert has officially transferred to Roma and will adopt the number 34 shirt to honour his friend Abdelak Nouri.
Mm-hmm. And final report, well done, Justin, comes from Guy Yedwab scouting Serge Gnabry, the 22-year-old German attacker for Bayern Munich. Serge Gnabry has been unveiled as a Bayern player. I chuckle at that because he has been a Bayern player for over a year. But this unveiling is a clear message that Gnabry is part of Niko Kovac's plans for the upcoming season. He's returned to full fitness and can play a variety of positions, so Bayern's preseason should give us a good idea where Kovac plans to use young Mr. Gnabry.
Well, thank you to Alan, Alexander, Connor, Chris, Ed, Alex, Calvin, Stephen, Shane and Guy for today's scouting reports. If you would like to join the Total Soccer Show network, Scouting Network, you will be supporting the show. I'm going to give a brief speech about supporting the show here.
How about it?
If you'll indulge me. You go to totalsoccershow.com/join. You can join at any level where you financially contribute to the Total Soccer Show on a monthly basis. $5 a month or more, you're in the Scouting Network. We send you a player to keep an eye on. $10 a month or more, we guarantee to answer one listener question per month from you on the Total Soccer Show. So it's because I realise a lot of people will have been listening through the World Cup, haven't heard a listener question show, but it's very much a Total Soccer Show staple, right?
Yeah, and I guess it's worth noting at this point that, if you've only just found us during the World Cup, we do more than just do like preview, review, breakdown, tactical stuff. We continue to do that throughout the season, not quite as in-depth because we don't have games literally every single day.
And there's not one game that everybody's watching, right?
But no, we'll do that
in Belgium in the third place game.
We'll do we'll do weekend roundups. No. We'll do the Champions League. We might even do some Europa League because I'm intent on watching more Europa League this season, having just maligned it earlier in this episode.
So maybe you owe it some good karma.
Yeah, I think so. But then we do listener questions, trivia games, some live show stuff will be up there too. Lots of different content from the Total Soccer Show.
Speaking of another way to support the Total Soccer Show, come and see us on tour.
That too.
We've definitely mentioned this several times throughout the World Cup, but you may not have caught it. Our tour starts July 17th in Omaha, Nebraska. Go to worldcupcomedytour.com. I'll put a link in the show notes, and you'll see the various venues we are going to. But I now know it so well off the top of my head. We are going to Omaha. We are going to Kansas City. We're also going to Richmond, which is where we already live. We're going to Virginia Beach.
That checks out.
We're going to Cincinnati. We're going to Columbus. We're going to Chicago, and we're going to Atlanta. 8 dates. WorldCupComedyTour.com.
That's good counting. That's good listing. That's good city tracking. Well done, Daryl.
Another way to support the Total Soccer Show would be to subscribe to The Athletic, because it's worth noting that Taylor and I both write for The Athletic. When you take a subscription to The Athletic, you get to see all that good content, but eventually some of that money works its way back to us when we get paid to write stories, right?
Yeah.
It's a good system.
It's a good system.
Yeah. So theathletic.com/TSS World Cup for 40% off. All right, speech over.
All right. And one more thing I'd like to say is thank you for listening to the show.
Yes.
That's what I got.
Thank you for that. All right, Taylor Rockwell, thank you for taking the time to talk to me today.
I already said my goodbye.
Listeners, thank you for listening. We'll talk to you again on Sunday after the World Cup final.